Yeah. Jeremy, I got a question for you right here. Can you give us the 411 on Jeremy Hamilton? Age, height, what weight class, your actual competition. Just fill us in on the basics because I'm going to put this at the start. So if you could just give us a little info on Jeremy.
So, you wanted my age?
Yeah, like the stats, like
okay.
lifting, age, height.
Okay. 32, 5'7". I competed in the 220-pound weight class. I walk around usually around 230, sometimes 235, sometimes 240. My best lifts in the gym so far are a 725 squat. I've done a 495 double on the bench and a 765 deadlift and a 330 military press. In the meet, I've done 722 squat, 501 bench press, and I think my heaviest deadlift is 727, and that comes out to be a 1951 total. I started lifting when I was 17, roughly. I started doing it because I was competing in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Cool.
And that was kind of my obsession. I guess I was always pretty strong. I remember the first time I did a deadlift, I was about 160 pounds.
How much did you do?
I pulled 405.
Your first deadlift.
Yeah, so the first time. But I figured, what's the point? And I put it down. And I never did it again for about 4 or 5 years.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah, I kept lifting for BJJ. I started to get back into the deadlifts again because I wanted to be able to pick people up, and it seemed to work. So I kept going with it, and then years and years went by, lifting in my parents' basement, just deadlifting and benching over and over, and I seemed to build a pretty good base.
So no squats?
No squats. I didn't have a power rack. I was in my parents' basement.
And how long was that, Jeremy?
How long was
the training in your parents' basement?
Oh, I must have did that for about 5 years.
So would you say that dungeon gyms do work?
Dungeon gyms work very well.
And then I guess the other question, were you always strong growing up? We could kind of definitively say that, yes, you are stronger than the average bear, maybe a little bit, but at any point were you training for anything besides BJJ and powerlifting? Like, in other words, bodybuilding, did that ever appeal to you? You know, Arnold Schwarzenegger, the pump, or anything like that, or no?
No, not at all. Didn't care about bodybuilding. I still don't really care about bodybuilding.
And why is that? Why don't you want to have jacked calves, bro? Well, you have jacked calves, sorry.
Oh, okay. I don't know. It's just I didn't care. I always just cared about performance. The obsession was like wrestling, BJJ, everything like that. So just having useless size just didn't appeal to me.
And it would slow you down, maybe, type of thing?
Yeah, pretty much.
Now, how good were you at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
I guess I was decent for the amount of time I spent doing it, but...
Could you beat BJ Penn?
No.
Okay.
Well, I don't put any scheduled deloads into my training. I believe that...
What? Get out of here. Leave your house.
I believe it's a waste of a training week. If you're planning to lift light, you could be that could be a day where it's your best day ever. You set a big PR, or it's a day that you break through a big mental hurdle. And I think you should always go in and try to lift and try and see what you can do. If it ends up being a deload, then so be it. But I don't believe in planning a deload. I don't think you see Chinese Olympic weightlifters putting 12 deload weeks a year into their training. That's 12 opportunities you just had, or even more if you train the lifts multiple times a week. That could be 36 opportunities you had to set a PR that you just wasted sitting on the couch or playing around with 50% of your max.
So is a deload something that you would only do based on how you felt that day? Like once you got into the gym, you started lifting, maybe it doesn't feel great, that's the only time you would do it?
Yeah.
You wouldn't decide on your way to the gym?
No, absolutely not. It's been said by Coach John Brose, a weightlifting coach, that the way you feel is a lie. And over time, I've come to figure that out too. Some days you feel absolute horrible, but once you get moving and get going, you surprise yourself and set a big PR. So imagine you went by the way you felt that day and just shut it down early or didn't go, and you missed a big opportunity to set a PR. I don't think you can tell just by the way you feel. You have to go in and try.
Feel the weight of the bar itself, how it feels.
Yeah, you should always try and train. Like if you want to be a lifter, then you should be lifting.
Now, let me ask you that, just following up on that, Jeremy, the concept of auto-regulation. I've seen in person myself when you train where you might have a specific kind of goal in mind, but maybe you adjust it according to that day, how you feel, how the bar feels more importantly. When did you kind of start either realizing that or incorporating it into your training? Was it something always intuitively you did or something you learned along the way?
It's definitely something I've learned along the way. I never used to do that at all. I would make a plan and I would try so hard to stick to it. And I find myself getting frustrated and upset if it didn't go to plan. So now I find even more and more that I'm letting everything just be open and just try to stay consistent with heavy lifting and go by how I feel. When a meet's coming up, I know how things should feel a certain amount of time out. So if I get a little ahead of myself and it feels a little too heavy, then I'll back off maybe and reset my numbers just so I can make sure I'm peaking and strong for the meet. So I keep everything quite open. Let's see. No, I would say it's mostly auto-regulated. On days I feel good, I'll push a little heavier. On days it feels bad, I'll just get some volume in. If it feels really bad, I'll take a low weight just for like one set of reps and call it a day. I just try to be as consistent as I can with the assistance because I know it really helps the big lifts.
Jeremy, I want to ask you about, first of all, you're standing right now at 220 and why you only choose to compete at one meet all year. I guess we could say most other powerlifters do what? They do more than one meet, right, in a year, and you only do RUM. First of all, what's that stand for, and why do you do just RUM?
Well, RUM stands for the Raw Unity Meet. It's one of the biggest meets maybe in the world. It's probably the biggest meet in North America as far as quality of lifters. So I've always just wanted to compete there because I've always wanted to compete against the best. And a lot of other meets are just a little too small or there's no one really to compete against. And at this point, I feel like it takes me about a full year just to get stronger. So I don't feel like entering a small meet and trying to peak when I haven't built any new strength yet.
But so you're saying about your diet, how you handle that?
Yeah, with my diet, I don't really put any thought into it anymore. It's become second nature, but I drink a ton of milk. I eat a lot of cottage cheese. I eat a lot of meat and pasta, and I probably have 2 big meals a day, along with 6 or 7 glasses of milk, which equals out to be a lot of food by the end of the day, but broken up, it's not too much.